Welcome to 5 Minute Fridays. Let me tell you why this is the best time of year to mulch, but why we're not mulching this spring. So March is definitely right at the top of the list of the times of year that I would like to mulch for most people in the country, because as the soil temperature starts to warm up is when everything starts germinating. You know, all the weeds that we might have in our bed start germinating. And I want to get a cap down over the top of those and hopefully prevent some of those things from germinating in the beds. You're always going to have weeds, so there's no pure, there's no total prevention of weeds by any stretch of the imagination. But I find if I time the mulch in late winter, early spring, right before weed seeds start to germinate, and then maybe again in the early fall, and use 2 thin layers of mulch rather than 1 giant thick layer of mulch, I can maybe prevent some of those winter weeds. So that's the timing that I'm looking for the best time to apply mulch. The other thing is, as the temperature warms up, all of our soil microbes, all of our soil life starts to wake up. All the things that are helping feed our plants and break mulch down and make nutrients available for our plants, all of that activity picks up. And so we definitely want to make sure there's some sort of cap there to prevent changes in cold and heat and the sun beating down on it and abnormally dry times and abnormally wet times from having a negative impact on that soil life. So that's part of the reason as well. And we're just duplicating the forest floor, really. I mean, if you look how's the forest operating out there without us out there fertilizing it every spring? It's operating by laying a protective layer on the ground above itself and then keeping alive a living group of organisms that are taking care of those plants and doing a lot of the hard work. And that layer of organic material that's laying on top is what's protecting the extremes from happening, right? So that's my argument for mulching right now. And so the basic types of mulch that I think are the best things for our gardens, obviously some sort of compost, and we are composting a few areas right now that will be for our vegetable garden, for our annual beds, for things that we're trying to get a lot out of this spring. So we're spending a little more money on those spaces because we only have 6-8 months where we have these flowering things that can really turn the garden into something kind of magical during the summertime. So that those things are getting a higher level of mulch. Then the other type of mulch we'll use is hardwood mulch. And this is just a shredded hardwood mulch that we buy in bulk. And it will have various sizes of materials in it. And it kind of mats down like this. And that matting down, as you can see right there, helps with that weed barrier that I'm talking about. And then also like a protective shell, basically on top of the ground. I don't want to do a whole lot of walking on it, and here I am standing here in a video talking about it at a wrong time of year when the soil's kind of moist. Shouldn't be really, keep as little foot traffic out of the beds as you can as you do mulch. And then we leave our leaves here in the garden. And so I have leaves on the ground here, and leaves, amazingly, nature's not wrong. This is a pretty good protector of beds, right? So we have hardwood mulch, we have leaves, we have compost. Another thing we use is wood chips, and out here in the paths, let me find a way through here and not hurt these perennials that are coming up. We have in our paths here, we use wood chips, which is a whole tree material, which is ground up. And we typically start our beds with this, and then we use them as the paths. And I think you can see, if you're watching any of our videos here, how nice these paths actually look. They're spongy to walk on. The plants are able to root under them. The dogs can walk on them comfortably, and it's material that's breaking down and feeding our plants. Okay. Now, so that's all the arguments for, mulching the garden this time of year, and the materials that we typically use, which again is just the leaves that fall off the tree, some hardwood mulch that we use as a decorative mulch. And normally we'd be putting that decorative mulch over these leaves right now. Okay. And it would be a little bit more crispy looking. The reason we're not mulching this spring, we are going to mulch later in the spring and into early summer. We have a open garden event here happening June 20th and 21st, and the tickets are available over on the website, and I want this place to look spiffy then for sure. But even then, I'm probably going to do a fairly thin layer. And the reason for that is we've just kind of reached a moment where our mulch has gotten a little thick. And I can see that some of the perennials, not super happy with the amount of mulch that are sitting on top of them. They're a little slow to break through it. A little less vigorous overall. I'm thinking I'm losing a little vigor in some of the perennials. Some of the bulbs coming back were a little, a bit of a struggle, where you could see they were pushing mulch up, to start to come up out of the ground. That was kind of an indicator that the mulch has gotten a little bit thick at this point. We did a landscape job. I think it's probably been almost 3 years, 2 or 3 years. It's like a 5-part landscape job where I discussed this pretty thoroughly, because as we went in to start that job, the person that had been maintaining that property for a long time had mulched twice a year or whatever, because they had been paid to do it, and they had been putting down lots of mulch each time. And the mulch had reached the point where it was like 10 inches thick, and there were dry pockets and dry sockets in it, okay? And it wasn't actually functioning properly anymore. Once the organic material piles up so high, it no longer is functioning, because you have the subsoil, and then a topsoil, and then a humus layer, and then kind of a chunky layer. So we want a little bit of mulch, the chunky layer on the top, or leaves, or wood chips. And then we want a humus layer, which is kind of that area where it's broken down some, right under your mulch. And then a topsoil layer, and then a subsoil layer is what we're trying to develop. We don't want to get that so out of whack that the chunky layer is this thick on top of it, because then the layers down below it don't function quite as well as what I find. So there are the occasional time where it didn't break down as well. Maybe it was a little drier. I think overall, likely, it's because we got less rain. We went through long stretches last year without rain. That was part of the reason my mulch didn't break down as well. So despite the fact that this would be a great time to put a cap out here for weed seeds and all kinds of things, we already have a lot of organic material out here, and I'm just gonna let it break down a little bit before we apply any more. So just keep that in mind. There is too much of a good thing. Too much of a good thing can happen in your garden. So I think we'll probably wait. As we're filming this, March 26th, I think. I'll probably wait until May 15th, May 20th. Hopefully we'll get some rain between now and then, help break some of this material down, and then we'll get in here and use our triple shredded hardwood mulch is typically what we use. I don't know what it would be called in your area, but I don't really care for the pallet mulch, the bagged pallet mulch, the wood chip mulch that you see everywhere now, in the bags and that kind of thing. I think when I see it used in commercial properties and stuff, I see that it floats and it doesn't seem to break down quite as well. I like the wood chips work really well because they're different size of material, and the triple shredded hardwood works really well, like I showed you, because it's all different size materials and it mats. And that matting prevents some erosion, not all erosion, but prevents some erosion, and then puts that little cap down, which we're trying to prevent some weeds. Again, you're gonna have weeds, but hopefully by timing these things, we can get them right. But you're never gonna get this exact. You're gonna over mulch at some point, and recognizing that and allowing it to break down just a little bit longer, not to the point where we have bare dirt. Don't ever wanna have bare dirt. So we'll monitor this, and as we get, before we have any bare soil out here, because again, we're trying to protect this life underneath the soil, which is helping, basically think about this plant and the leaves that come out on this plant here in a couple weeks as solar panels. Collect the sun's energy, produce sugars in the form of chlorophyll, goes down into the roots. These beneficial organisms, fungi, bacteria that don't have access to the sunlight to make those sugars, take those sugars from the plant, and in exchange, they bring nutrients and water to the plant when it's in need of those things. And that's that relationship. And in a wooded space or a grassland where the sun isn't hitting the soil directly and they're mulched, those things thrive under the soil, okay? In our ornamental gardens, where we tend to mow the grass over tree roots on Saturdays, when it's 90 degrees outside, and let the mulch go down to bare dirt occasionally and wash out of the beds and that kind of thing, you can imagine that soil life has a much harder time sustaining itself, right? So we have to be thinking about it. So there you go. There's the 5-Minute Friday on why it's the best time to mulch, but why we're not actually mulching right this second. I'm trying not to overdo it. So thank you guys so much for watching.